River Ridge Hardware, we want to help you celebrate your mothers and your grandmothers with all kinds of gifts. Have you ever been to your grandmother's house and she has a project for you to do and you can't find the shovel, or the rake's broken, or the hoe hasn't been used in years? We have rakes, shovels, hoes at $5.97. We have bird feeders. We have hanging baskets. We have everything that your mother or grandmother would ever want here at River Ridge Hardware.
Welcome to the region's only public safety talk show. It's time again for the Sheriff's Report, your weekly report from Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich. Sheriff's Report covers a variety of public issues in Spokane County and is now in its fourth year on the air. Sheriff's Report is sponsored by River Ridge Hardware. Now, here's your host, Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich.
Well, good morning, afternoon if you're listening on radio. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of what it's actually like to investigate crime in Spokane County and the city of Spokane Valley. More specifically, how we have an extreme lack of accountability once we investigate those crimes, we've arrested the individuals, and how rapidly they come back onto your streets, back into your neighborhoods. A few weeks ago we did a series on Is Spokane Dying? Kind of modeled after this Is Spokane or Is Seattle Dying that Como did. I was amazed about the feedback from the media and the attack they did on Como for that documentary that they did. It was the first time I've really seen the media attack one of their own. And I tell you that the media, I'm sorry folks, you're out of touch. I love Sean Vestal. He's a good guy. We've had a good relationship. Don't always agree. But Sean's latest column piece on that particular subject, I'm sorry, Sean, you're out of touch. You don't understand what is going on, and it's time that, the progressives, and you know that I've stopped calling that people Democrats, because true Democrats do not believe in the progressive ideas. Matter of fact, they're getting really tired of the progressive idea. So the progressive Marxist socialist ideas are causing a lot of what you're seeing out on the streets. They're causing and they are setting the policies that are leading to Is Seattle Dying? They're causing the policies that are leading to zero accountability, quite frankly, not just in Spokane, not just in Seattle, the state of Washington, and I'm watching it spread across the United States. We need to do something to stop that. And I think one of the easiest ways to give you a snapshot, and these folks have no agendas. They come to me on a continual basis. I get briefed every Monday on criminal activity in this community, and they are frustrated. And they're frustrated because they can't protect you. They're frustrated because they cannot get these people out of your neighborhoods. And we try. We're successful. We do a great job arresting people. The system does a lousy job of holding people accountable and getting them the help that they need. More importantly, protecting you. They do not protect you. They allow drug dealers to come back. They allow the drug dealers to sell the drugs that are killing people. The policies that are being set by politicians right now are a death sentence for many in this community. They are killing people, and that's not an exaggeration, that's not hyperbole for me, that is a reality. So the day that we decide we want to fix the problem, we'll start holding people accountable. So with me, I have Sergeant Pat Bloomer, who's in charge of the Spokane Valley Investigative Unit, and also Lieutenant Jay McNall, who is in charge of the unincorporated investigative task force for the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. They're both Sheriff's Office employees. The City of Spokane Valley is a contract city for the Sheriff's Office. Pat, let's talk about one of the topics that I've been hearing for the last month in my Monday morning briefings, and that is the trouble you have in a neighborhood out in the valley caused by an individual, and we've done press releases on him multiple times, Gary Olive.
Okay.
Give us a snapshot.
So, and you're absolutely right, Sheriff. Some of the markers of health and safety and the welfare of our communities is these chronic nuisance houses, and this is one of those that we deal with. We have several in the valley that we're dealing with. This one that just culminated in an investigation. In 2018, the detectives actually purchased controlled substance into this house. We did a search warrant on it with SWAT. Mr. Olive was arrested. He pled and was found guilty, did 56 days as an 11-time convicted felon.
Now, 56 days, and he's had 11 felony counts
Yes,
already.
correct.
Convictions.
Convictions. Those are all convictions. We won't talk about all the arrests that he's had. Those are convictions, yes.
Right. So, folks, I hope you just heard that. This guy who has 11 felony convictions got 56 days for selling poison that's killing your kids.
Exactly. This year, again, this was March of 2018 when this culminated. This year, we still continued over the fall and the spring to receive complaints from the neighbors. Reference stolen property, reference drug dealing, reference noise, junk vehicles, all of those things that impact the neighborhood and the well-being there. We initiated another investigation in mid-March. We started that investigation by serving chronic nuisance notices on Mr. Olive and the residents, 6 of them, saying 6 separate crimes has occurred at this location. Cease and desist with your activities. Following that, 4 more purchases of methamphetamine was made directly from Mr. Olive at that address. We engaged in a 3-day surveillance to disrupt the criminal activity there. We arrested 5 separate people for many crimes, many related to drugs. One, a 14-time felon that was arrested in the 2018 SWAT search warrant, who was still residing there and had a warrant and was arrested. So a 14-time convicted felon there that had a warrant for his arrest.
Any nexus to property crimes?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All of these things. We did search warrants on 3 separate vehicles that we seized from the residents. We did locate stolen computers, other stolen property from vehicle prowlings and from burglaries. So we did arrest Mr. Olive. He was OR'd once again by the judge and was back at the address. We have the neighbors coming out, shaking our hands, thanking us for what we're doing when we do the search warrant. Hours later, they're calling and wondering why he's back in the home. And we simply have to tell them that we can do nothing about that.
You just said something that I think that people need to wrap their minds around. You did all this work, you arrested this guy, the neighbors are all happy, and you said something most important was the time frame.
Yes.
Within hours.
Within hours. So we completed our investigation after midnight that night, and the next day when he went the first appearance, he was OR'd.
So let's say 13 hours maybe at the most.
Yeah.
And one of the things, Pat and Jay, that I've seen time and time again from the street level deputy is they look at me and go, boss, the bad guy is looking at us and going, within 3 days, 72 hours, we'll be out.
Yes.
I mean, they're literally telling the deputy that.
Sure. They absolutely tell us. I'm going to continue what I'm doing because that's what I know. That's what I do. And there's nothing more to it. They just continue doing that.
And going to jail is sort of like cost of doing business.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, one person that we arrested for property crimes was OR'd 3 out of 4 times. We always say crime doesn't pay. He wrote over $10,000 in stolen checks. He had a $5,000 bond. So there is a net positive there if you're looking at it from a business point of view. If you're not held accountable, they continue doing what they're doing.
So is Mr. Olive currently out, or
He is. He is currently out. That's an ongoing investigation. We expect more charges and more arrests to occur as we continue to dig through. We're still digging through some evidence during the search warrants and the vehicle search warrants. I mean, those things take time. And
so what are the folks that live in the neighborhood telling you?
Well, they're not happy. Obviously, they're happy that we did our job up to the point of putting them in jail, and then we're having to explain to them that there's no accountability. While there's a presumption of innocence, he continues to commit the crimes that he's committing, and I anticipate that we will start another investigation and deal with him again. That's all that we can do at this point. If the courts and judiciary will not hold them accountable, we have to continue to put them in the jail and the releasing.
One day I'd like to do a study about the number of man hours and the absolute cost it is to this community
Sure.
to have judges continually release these folks back.
Absolutely.
And take a look at the damage done, how much property they sold, how many drugs they sold, how many people actually died because of the drugs they sold.
The citizens would be appalled at the amount of money and resources that we spend to not get anything in a way of accountability and holding them accountable for the crimes.
Jay, is this just a Valley issue, or is this kind of widespread?
This is widespread. We have the same issues in the unincorporated. We have multiple locations where we have done multiple cases on, multiple search warrants on, and people are OR'd by the judges. For this program, I did a quick check for the last 12 months. I limited the search to people who had 10 or more felony charges in the last 12 months. There were 47 people in Spokane County who had 10 or more felony charges within the last 12 months. Out of those people, I randomly chose 6 to do a little further in-depth on. There's one individual who was, arrested 6 times in the last 12 months on 11 felony counts. They include theft, possession of stolen property, eluding, unlawful possession of a firearm, theft of a firearm, burglary, and leading organized crimes. He has 30 prior convictions, prior felony convictions. And he was released.
You said 30.
30. He was released on a $10,000 bond. Another individual, he has 11 brand new felony counts in the last 12 months for drugs, possession of a firearm, leading organized crime, and property crimes. He has 18 prior felony convictions, and he was OR'd pretrial.
In case you're not catching what OR'd means, that means he was released without bail. Period. And if you're wondering how that's happening, court rules. The courts are hiding behind, bail isn't supposed to be punitive. You're supposed to be, have the right to bail, which is true. By the Constitution, that's true. Except
Absolutely.
it is not a total guarantee. There's another side of that, and the other side of that works like this: if you're a flight risk or you're a risk to the community, not so much. You don't get out. Now, somebody that's committed 30 felony and has those type of convictions, that we're not talking about the arrest, because if we talked about arrest, you would really get upset. I've watched people that have committed 50 burglaries, folks, in this community and confess to it. Get OR'd, and by the time we get them back, they've done another 40, and they still haven't gone to trial for the first 50.
And it's funny you say that, Sheriff, because one of the individuals that I randomly chose here, they only had 1 physical arrest in the last 12 months, but they were charged with 51 felony counts, and he was OR'd within 12 hours.
12 hours.
12 hours. And he is a convicted felon. He has 1 prior conviction.
Again, cost of doing business.
Yep.
Sure.
The dynamic that we see going on right now, frustrating to the folks who are doing the job?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Give us a snapshot of what your folks are
Exactly.
feeling,
Well,
and then what your folks are feeling.
Sure, and just to piggyback on that list there, recently we arrested a person for possession of meth and possession of heroin. He was immediately OR'd by the court. Within days, we had arrested him again for theft and trafficking in stolen property, for vehicle prowling, and then pawning those items. We actually arrested him a 3rd time. He was OR'd on the other one as well. He was arrested a 3rd time for burglarizing 2 separate residences, theft of a firearm, several thefts. So he had a firearm at that point. Went to court. He was OR'd before we had completed our searching of the vehicle that he was in. So with a theft of a firearm, 2 separate burglaries, was OR'd back in the community, and that was on April 26th On May 2nd, we arrested him for 2 fresh burglaries that he committed after being OR'd. This person's been arrested by 4 different agencies in our county and booked in the jail. 3 out of the 4 arrests being ORs. And then I get to talk to the victims who are wondering why this guy's out, and they find out that he's OR'd 1, 2, and 3 times prior, and I don't have the answer for them other than the system is broke. We have to fix this where our criminals are not going back out and victimizing our neighborhoods and victimizing our citizens.
The chilling aspect of that, and I hope you're catching this, folks. I hope you're actually listening to the crimes that are being mentioned here. Possession of a stolen firearm, stealing firearms. And we have a governor and an AG that wants to make criminals out of law-abiding gun owners, but we refuse to hold criminals accountable for possessing firearms. It's against the law, folks. They can't. If you're a convicted felon, you can't. You can't steal a firearm. You want to end gun violence in America? Mandatory 10-year sentence for using a gun or stealing a gun in the commission of a crime. That pretty much would nip it, because there's a cost. There's a true cost. But you have people out here that, and I'm telling you, every time they let one of these folks walk and they knew that they were armed, here's what happens. The risks to my citizenry, our citizenry, increase multiple, because these progressive, liberal, socialist, Marxists have it in their heads that property crimes are nonviolent. Does it sound nonviolent when they steal a firearm? Here's a case in point. A few years ago, 50 burglaries up in the Colbert area, Green Bluff area. We catch the guys. One of them has a gun in his pocket, a stolen gun. When asked why he had the gun, well, if the homeowner confronts me, it's for the homeowner. Did you hear that? Now put a badge on and know that you've got to go out and contact these people time and time again. What's the risk that our deputies are going to be in a firefight with that suspect one day because a judge refuses to do their job? And I'm not going to beat up on the judges anymore. The system refuses to do a job because we have politicians in this area that have said very bluntly, there will be no new jails, there will be no new facilities. Mayor David Condon's one of them. Oh yes, I just used the name. You want to know why it's broke? You have politicians that don't care and don't get it. If it was them, it was their families, if they had to face this, it'd be a different story. Jay?
Sheriff, I want to make this very clear. These individuals I'm talking about are not just an unincorporated county problem.
No.
They commit crimes throughout the entire region, in the valley, in the city of Spokane, in the unincorporated, in our small jurisdictions, in other counties. Lines on a map mean nothing to these people. There are no consequences for their actions, so they go out and commit crime after crime after crime. When they're released, pending trial, they continue to commit crimes. We rearrest these people for the same crimes while they're out on release pending the trial for the last crimes. It is a disease that is eating our community.
That's a very accurate description. And if you think that that's not the case, it's a disease that's being fed and created. I sat in front of a Senate hearing on career criminals and chronic offenders. Folks, that's what we're talking about here, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
These are the 5% of the 5% that cause the 50% of the crime. I listened as a senator literally uttered these words in reference to stolen vehicles. Now, Lord knows we don't have a stolen vehicle problem in Spokane County. Number 4, number 2, number 1 in the nation, depending on what year you're going to go with. That's just not Spokane County. That's the state of Washington also. Let's get it real. Let's make sure you understand this isn't just our problem. This is the state's problem. Why do you think we have such a problem? How many stolen vehicles can you get away with before you're held accountable in this county?
It depends. We're still finding that out, how many you can do, because there's several that are still getting away with it and repeatedly being caught in stolen vehicles. So
We've had
I don't know the number.
up to 10
Yeah.
Up to 10.
before they even saw any.
And I believe I know which individual you're talking about. We dealt with him. It was 10 stolen vehicles. Every one of those stolen vehicles was involved in a high-speed pursuit and usually a crash at the end of it, and then a foot chase and resisting arrest and everything else.
So high-speed pursuit, dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Dangerous to the citizens out there?
Absolutely.
Deadly to the citizens at times.
Okay. When are you going to have enough, folks? When's enough enough? This senator went on to say, well, you know, the cars that are being stolen are usually Escalades and Cadillacs and things like that, and the folks that own that type of vehicle can afford that. The pure socialist thought right there. That is, you can't get any more socialist than that. You can afford that. And it's nonviolent. There's no violence here. The reality is, what make and model is usually stolen around this community?
It varies at times, but it's normally Hondas, usually Accords or Civics, Subarus, Ford pickups, working class people's vehicles.
And usually older vehicles.
Correct.
And I'll tell you who that affects. It's that working single mom that relies on that vehicle to take the kids to school and get to work. And I guarantee you she can't afford that vehicle being gone. You have lost touch with reality. If you actually can say that these crimes are nonviolent. Drug crimes is another thing that you say, nonviolent, right?
Absolutely.
How about that?
So even going back to the stolen vehicles, we have an address out in the valley, Burns address, 136 calls for service, 18 chronic nuisance notices in it. We've hit that place 3 times with search warrants, 2 of them with a SWAT because of weapons being involved. Stolen vehicles, we've recovered 3 or 4 stolen vehicles from there. 2 of them had stolen firearms in them. So they were nonviolent up until somebody decides it's not going to be nonviolent, and we have an issue with a neighbor confronting them because neighbors are upset about this. They will yell at people that are going to that house because they don't like what is going on there. Out of the 16 people that was booked into jail for crimes at that location, 9 were OR'd and went right back to the house. So, and you talk about nonviolent drugs, drug dealers and narcotics dealers carry firearms to protect themselves. We've arrested 2 in the last 4 months, one with a pound of meth, one with a half pound. He had a firearm in his backpack when we grabbed him coming out of a local motel. He had the firearm on him. A month later, he's out on OR. We arrest him again in a vehicle for more drug crimes. He has a firearm in the trunk with more drugs. We don't know if that one's stolen yet. We're still investigating that. But again, they're back out in the community because the system is not holding them accountable and keeping them.
Correct. And drug dealers are violent. They will violently protect their drugs and their money. I worked undercover narcotics for a lot of years. Every drug dealer has violent tendencies, and they will use violence to protect their money and their narcotics, and whether it's the citizens or whether it's law enforcement.
And the nexus between drugs and property crimes go hand in hand, folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking about the Burns address, warrants, drugs, and stolen property. Almost every person that was booked had at least 2 of those 3, mainly warrants, mainly drugs, and then we recovered stolen property. We recovered items from a burglary. It's sad to say, but at the East Walmart, if we have a shoplift where they do a cart push and run, people go between this address and try to catch them because that's where they're going. They're going to these chronic nuisance places that we keep getting these criminals going back to time and time again because they're being released.
Correct. And what does that do to your robbery stats?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to basically push them through the roof because they're going to leave with that stolen property at all costs. If it means they assault someone, we've had people ran over in the parking lots, some serious injuries, some just being bumped. But the potential, right? But nonviolent, exactly. So it is violence. It is, you are affecting the well-being of a community and a neighborhood at its very core when we cannot deal with these things. And the law enforcement as a whole, my guys and the county guys do an excellent job of dealing with these criminals. There's got to be something beyond that where the judiciary and the courts change something to hold them accountable.
I'll tell you, folks. I'm going to let the guys wrap up, give them about a minute apiece, and then I'm going to chime in. What would you like to say in your last minute?
Sure. So basically speaking to the community, to keep doing what they're doing, to call crime check, to report these houses. Understand we are doing our very best to track them. We're tracking over 24 chronic nuisance houses right now in the Spokane Valley alone. So continue calling crime check, continue reporting those crimes. We are doing our best to deal with them. If we're relegated to simply arresting them over and over and putting them in, we will do our part in this system.
City of the Valley is giving you some tools.
They
to
have.
help.
They have. The
So,
chronic.
folks, I want you to know that the City of the Valley is working hand in hand with us to end these problems. Board of County Commissioners are working on the same type of tools and assets. I can't say that for the City of Spokane, and I feel for Chief Meidel. I feel for SPD, the members of SPD. They want to do a great job. They want to do the best job they can for you, but they are literally handcuffed.
Yeah.
Jay?
I'm going to agree with Pat. Please keep calling crime check. Please keep calling 911. Please keep reporting and assisting us in taking these people off the street. Join SCOPE. Join some of the other programs that we have set up with the VIP program, the video identification program, to assist us in that stuff. Please keep helping us to help you. On top of that, go to your city council meetings, go to your Board of County Commissioner meetings, talk to your legislators, call them, write them, annoy them, so that you can help push them to help us solve these problems.
Do you have a last word?
No.
All right. You might wonder how did we get here? Well, because we got here because we're being mean if we hold people accountable. We're being uncompassionate. Let me tell you what compassion and lack of compassion is. The lack of compassion is developing a system where good people are victimized continually and rewarding those who are doing it. That's a lack of compassion. Here's another lack of compassion. That individual who has a drug problem, who has fallen on total bad times, is now living out on the streets, is victimized by these drug dealers that you continue to release. And we are creating a system where not only do we, here's some needles to shoot the poison in your arm. Matter of fact, we're going to let your drug dealer out so he can make sure that you keep shooting that poison in. And then we wonder why the number one reason we have people cause of death in the state of Washington is opioid addiction. We wonder, whoa, how could this happen? Well, because you're allowing it. You're not holding the people that are victimizing people and killing people. You have created a system of a death sentence. If you are homeless on the street and a drug addict, you are going to end up in a bad position one way or another. You will either be a victim or you will be forced into criminal activity, which is going to bring you into contact with other elements. Folks, I hope you've listened, because we need to change this. This is Sheriff Ozzie with the Sheriff's Report. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Sheriff's Report is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Sheriff's Report is sponsored by River Ridge Hardware. Ask Ozzie a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.